What is going on, everybody? If you clicked on this video, you're probably trying to find a resurgence for your team. We're halfway through the season almost. Whether that's because of bye weeks or injuries, there's a whole bunch of things changing and we need to take advantage of the waiver wire while we can. Lucky for you guys, I will be giving you my list of the absolute best waiver wire pickups for week 8. So let's get right into it because you guys know I hate to waste people's time. The very first player on this list we need to be picking him up is Darrell Henderson. And coming into this week, there was no Kyren Williams. He is on IR and a bunch of people were coming and saying to me, Avery, we have to be picking up Zach Evans. He is the guy we need to get. He's the RB1. I was saying no. The Rams elevated Royce Freeman, Myles Gaskin, and Darrell Henderson. And a couple hours after they elevated those guys, news came out that Royce Freeman and Darrell Henderson were going to be the RB1 and 2 for this game. And this week showed us that if you need a fill-in running back, Darrell Henderson is going to be the guy for the next coming weeks until Kyren is back. He led this backfield in snaps, 39 compared to Royce Freeman at 29, and Zach Evans did not touch the field. Moving forward, until Kyren comes back, it's going to be a two-man committee, but both of these running backs are decently viable for fantasy flex spots if you need someone to fill in. If you look at this week 7 matchup against the Steelers, Darrell Henderson was leading in pretty much everything. He led in early down snaps, third down snaps, and 2-minute drills. These running backs will be way more valuable in non-PPR leagues just because they don't catch a lot of passes, but I value Darrell Henderson more as an RB2 and Royce Freeman as a low-end RB3. Neither of these guys are a long-term play. When Kyren comes back, they're going to be complete non-factors, but for the time being, Darrell Henderson is the guy you need to grab. But if you appreciate me jumping right into the video and not wasting your time, and you got some good insights from the video so far already, make sure to be subscribed so you won't miss these videos every single day. Moving over to a wide receiver we need to pick up off the waivers, and I still don't understand how he's not rostered in over 50% of leagues. He definitely will be after this week, is Josh Downs. If we look at his season and his chart so far this year, he's averaged 6 targets a game. He's been seeing wide receiver 2/3 snaps since the beginning jump of week 1 of the season, despite having one of the toughest wide receiver schedules. And a lot of people were worried about this offense with Anthony Richardson going out for the entirety of the season. But Gardner Minshew has come in here and elevated all of these pass catchers, especially Josh Downs. If we single out the games that Minshew was starting, Josh Downs averages just under 10 targets a game. His floor and ceiling is significantly higher now with Gardner Minshew, and the reason for this is because this team is now top 5 in pace per game, which pretty much means they run one of the more fast-paced offenses in the NFL, which you can put together. They have one of the lowest no-huddle rates, and what this does is give the entire offense more opportunities, more time on field, more targets, and eventually more fantasy points. The Colts are 8th in passing attempts and 7th in passing yards, and with Gardner Minshew, they're top 5 in both of those. He might not be the best real-life quarterback, but he can more than support all of these wide receivers, and if you're in a league that isn't as sharp, you might be able to wait a week to get Josh Downs, but I wouldn't wait it. I wouldn't risk it. He does have his bye week in week 11. After that, it should be completely impossible to get him off your waivers, and we do know that teams involve their rookies more after their bye weeks. And moving over to a tight end we need to be adding off the waiver wire for week 8 is Dalton Kincaid, and this is a guy that I wasn't super high on in the beginning of the season. I wasn't buying into any of the hype. He was going really early in drafts, but now I think it's finally time to come back around to Dalton Kincaid. And the reason for this, let's get a little bit of a background. He came out last week and saw 8 receptions for 75 yards. And it's not about this great game that is making him a must add. It's more of the fact that this is the beginning of his breakout and uptick in usage. And this was the trend that we were waiting to see happen before you went through and added him on our roster. And the performance he had last week doesn't make him a locked and loaded starting tight end every single week. We shouldn't say that. He's only averaging 4 targets on the season and continues to split snaps with Dawson Knox. Patriots offense is also centered around taking out the top guy, which is why Stephon Diggs didn't have the best game and led to other guys like Dalton Kincaid getting more usage. And regardless of how good Kincaid is going to play, Dawson Knox will never be a non-factor in this offense. He's always going to have some level of snaps. But the tight end pool is so shallow this year, we're going to cling on to any kind of upside we have, especially in a high passing offense like the Bills, where he's going to have a lot of opportunities and targets moving forward, especially considering he's running more routes than Dawson Knox, and it looks like this could be the start of his breakout. But speaking of tight end breakouts, we also need to be going through and adding Michael Mayer, a guy we were talking about last week, but came out and didn't have the best game. He continues to increase his usage, and we weren't expecting a full breakout like Travis Kelce level targets. He's doing just what we thought he would do, and you can't be discouraged. He went to averaging a target a game to almost 5 over the past 3 weeks, and this kind of uptick in usage is exactly what we look for in rookies. Austin Hooper has essentially become a non-factor, and he was outsnapped 22 snaps to Michael Mayer's 46. And this is going to continue to happen for the remainder of the season, and you can contribute this matchup to the absence of Jimmy G. The entirety of these pass catchers has a lower floor and ceiling when he's not playing, regardless of the fact that he's not the best quarterback in the league. But Mayer has one of the easiest, if not the easiest, tight end schedules for the remainder of the fantasy season. So if anything, you could use him as trade bait and just stash him on your bench if you don't have a spot you're using. But another guy we need to add this week, and the window for adding him off the waiver wire is getting smaller by the week, is Kyler Murray. His practice window is getting closer, and you're only going to hear more and more about him and this offense as he gets closer to playing. And it's not very often you can get a truly elite fantasy quarterback off the waivers for free. And I get everybody has their takes. Kyler Murray might not be the best real life quarterback, but with his rushing upside, he is at least a top 10 quarterback in fantasy. We cannot forget, just because he's injured and hasn't played in a while, he's averaging 40 rushing yards a game since 2020, and he's also graded out as the QB5 in that time span. And that's just sitting on our waivers. He should be the #1 waiver claim of the week, especially if you're in need of a quarterback. Cardinals offense doesn't look terrible, definitely a lot better than all of us expected them to be. They are by no means the worst team in the NFL. This offense is going to be elevated when Kyler comes back. They have a good amount of weapons with Marquise Brown, and James Conner will come back around the same timeline as him as well. Even if he's coming off injury and hasn't played in a while, he's still going to be a top 10 quarterback regardless on the season. And one last tight end option I'm going to go over very quickly is Jake Ferguson, a guy that a lot of people has forgotten about since his bye week last week, and he didn't have the best performance the week before that, 1 catch for 16 yards. But we have to be reminded this is just regular tight end volatility. The Cowboys offense hasn't looked the most polished and best since the beginning of the season. They will put it together and have more of a dominant passing game. CeeDee Lamb has come out and said that they're just not at their level they should be as well. But a lot of people are forgetting about his dominance in the beginning of the season in target share. He still owns all of the tight end snaps. He is the clear tight end 1. He runs routes on all of the snaps. And outside of his last game, he's still averaging 6 targets. And he has one of the better tight end matchups this week coming up against the Rams. They are top 5 in points allowed to opposing tight ends. Grab him if you want a sneaky start, but he's just a great season-long ad as well. But another great ad at the running back position we need to be taking advantage of is Kareem Hunt. A quick answer to why we need to be adding him is Jerome Ford, which I'll get into. Ford went down with an ankle injury late in the 4th quarter of last week's game, and he came out with a boot. This could very well be a serious injury. It looks like it possibly could be a high ankle sprain, and we know how hard it is for running backs specifically to come back from those injuries. They're very specific and very nagging, and it's not one of those injuries you can just play through and it'll get better. He will be out at least a week or 2. And on the other side for Kareem Hunt, he hasn't looked the most efficient this season by any means, but he also hasn't seen the highest snap share. If you look at his chart, he really hasn't had the opportunities, but with Ford out, he has no choice. He will continue to lead the receiving game and most of the goal line snaps, which he's already getting. If you're in a deeper league, Pierre Strong might be a decent pickup if you really need a fill-in running back. It'll be a 60-40 split, at least for the first week, so it does give Strong some upside. But in general, we want to be getting Kareem Hunt. He knows this offense. He's been with the team for a while. He gets the receiving work. He gets the goal line work. And with all of these injuries and bye weeks coming up, there shouldn't be a reason to not grab Hunt if you need a running back. And again, I'm going to talk about the next must-add running back very quickly here, because I feel like I've been talking about him for months now. If you guys have heard me say this a million times, you can go ahead and skip to the next player. But for those of you that don't know, Tyjae Spears needs to be added, and these reasons just keep piling up. For some reason that I don't understand, he's still only rostered in 50% of leagues, despite splitting this backfield 50-50 with Derrick Henry and getting a majority of the usage on important downs. There's absolutely no doubt that Derrick Henry is leading this backfield on the snaps he's getting. He's seeing a majority of the carries and usage in general, but the trade deadline for the NFL is closely approaching on October 31st, and there are real rumors that Derrick Henry is going to get traded. I don't doubt that they're at least looking for these options. The Titans have absolutely zero incentive to use Henry if they're not going to be a winning team and they're not going to be close to getting to the playoffs. They're sitting at a 2-4 record. There's only 2 teams that have a worse record than they do. The Jags are running away with the division at 5-2, and Ryan Tannehill is injured. They have no answer at the quarterback position. They could very well just tank for one in the draft. And even if Henry weren't to get traded, we still need to be getting Tyjae Spears because his snaps are still very efficient. The majority of his usage come in 3rd and long situations or any kind of passing down play where they need some kind of spark. When the Titans are losing games, which is pretty much every single week, he is the dynamic back they put in the backfield to get some kind of spark going. And there is no RB3 that can take usage. So if Derrick Henry were to get injured or get traded, Tyjae Spears is the clear RB1. He continues to see more usage on the snaps he already gets, and he's just a great option in general. But moving over to a couple defenses we need to be adding off the waiver wire. I love ending these videos off with some defenses because points are points and we need them, because I personally have lost a decent amount of matchups just because of a couple points. So the first team we can grab off the waivers is the Miami Dolphins defense, and this is one that a lot of teams and a lot of roster owners have dropped because of their matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles this week, so they are pretty readily available on the waivers. But this week coming up in week 8, they get a great matchup against the New England Patriots, who did look good last week and beat the Bills, I will not lie, but you would be crazy if you think that's going to happen every single week. The Patriots are, though, going to have to pass a lot in this game to stay close with the Dolphins. That's going to lead to more dropbacks, more sack opportunities, and more interceptions. Mac Jones does make a lot of mistakes. You can also look to grab the Chargers defense, who get an amazing matchup against against the Chicago Bears without Justin Fields. He's already been ruled doubtful. There probably isn't a chance that he plays. But honestly, who knows if that's a good or a bad thing, because they looked pretty good last week without him. Either way, this offense isn't one of the best. They're going to have to pass a lot to stay in the game with the very pass-heavy, offense-heavy Chargers. They don't have a great offensive line, again, leading to more sacks, more turnovers. You guys get the deal. But one more defense I'm also loving off the waiver wire, if you can't get either of these guys, is the Detroit Lions. They get a great matchup against the Raiders, who haven't had the most predictable offense this season. It does look like Jimmy G will be good to go and suiting up for this game, but you gotta believe that the Lions are coming back for blood after getting blown out by 30 points against the Ravens. But that is going to finish off this video for the waiver wire must add best ads of the week. If you guys do want to see the waiver wire don't ads and the traps that are sitting on your waivers, make sure to watch that video. It's coming out tomorrow. Be subscribed, have your post notifications on, do whatever you have to do. But I appreciate you guys watching this video, and I'll see you guys in that one tomorrow.